Good afternoon. Today's class we are going to learn about nationalism and imperialism. So, we know that the meaning of nationalism for what it stands for. And what about imperialism? So, imperialism means what we call in Kannada Samrajya Shahi. Samrajya Shahi. See here, in this topic, we are going to cover especially the Balkan issues, the struggle between the different European countries, especially to gain power over the Balkan areas. By the last quarter of the 19th century, nationalism no longer retained its idealistic liberal democratic sentiment of the first half of the century. Are you getting now? So, by the last quarter of the 19th century, nationalism so no longer retained its idealistic, especially liberal democratic sentiment of the first half of the century, but became a narrow creed with limited ends. Became a narrow creed with limited ends. See, during this period, nationalist groups became increasingly intolerant of each other, the nationalist group, among themselves only. So, they were intolerant of each other. And every day, and even always, ever ready to go to war also. So, what happened? So, when the idea of this liberal democratic sentiment, so during the quarter of the 19th century, especially, so it's narrow creed with the limited hands. And during this period, so nationalist group became increasingly intolerant of each other and ever ready to go for war also. They were ready to go with war. So the major European powers in turn manipulated the nationalist aspirations of the subject peoples in Europe to further their own imperialist aims. So, what happened now? The major European powers in turn manipulated the nationalist aspiration of the subject peoples in European countries to further their own imperialist aims. See, the most serious source of nationalist tension in Europe after 1871 it was the area called the Balkans. So after 1871, so the most serious source of nationalist tension in Europe, especially after 87. So it was the area which was called as the Balkan. What is this Balkan? See, the Balkans was a region of geographical and ethnic variations comprising the modern different countries. It was a Balkan was a region of geographical and ethnic variations comprising, so modern day whatever we are modern day we are looking, including Romania, Bulgaria, Croatia, Understood now. So, Romania, Bulgaria, Albania, even the Greece also. Understood now. Greece also, Macedonia also, Macedonia, and even the Bosnia. What a beautiful names, no? Bosnia and Herzegovina still are there. So, Slovenia, this much only. Again is there. Serbia and Montenegro. Serbia and Montenegro. See, these were all actually. So please, Balkan areas means after 1871, the Balkan area in Europe. So that means it's including all these, it's comprising all these modern states. Romania, Bulgaria, Croatia, Albania, Greece, Macedonia, Bosnia, Herzegovina, Slovenia, Serbia, and Montenegro. So these are the present days. So this actually there we can see. So it was the reason of geographical and ethnic variation. There are different the ethnic groups. See whose inhabitants were broadly known as the Slavs. So these actually the inhabitants in these Balkan areas. They used to call us a Slav. 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 Getting now. So the inhabitants of this area whose so they were known as Slav. A large part of the Balkan. So we knows that previously we studied, especially even the Greece also under the control of Ottoman Empire. So the maximum of these the modern areas. So even during the time a large part of the Balkan areas was under the control of the Ottoman Empire. So the Balkan area it was actually under the control of Ottoman Empire. So Ottoman Empire controlled these many the different areas, especially during the time the spread of the ideas of romantic nationalism. Already we learnt about the role of the romanticism and its influence in European countries while spreading the idea of the nationalism. The same, dear students, so the spread of the ideas of romantic nationalism in the Balkan areas together with the disintegration of the Ottoman Empire so made this region very explosive. So because of the influence of romantic nationalism, so in the Balkans, so together with the disintegration of the Ottoman Empire, so that made this region very explosive. So here, all through the 19th century, the Ottoman Empire had sought to strengthen itself through modernization and internal reforms. It was tried. The Ottoman Empire, it was tried to sought to strengthen itself through modernization and even so the Ottoman Empire brought a lot of internal reforms also, but with very little success. So the Ottoman Empire it was not successfully run. So Here, all these are the different physical, geographical, and ethnical groups and the regions. So slowly, one by one, its European subject nationalities broke away from its control and declared independence. So here, all this one by one, what happened? So one by one, it's the European subject nationalities broke away from its control and declared independence. The Balkan peoples based their claims for independence or political rights on nationality and used history to prove that they had once been independent but had subsequently been subjugated by foreign powers. Hence, the rebellious nationalities in the Balkans thought of their struggle as attempts to win back their long lost independence. Are you getting to students? So what happened now? The Balkan peoples so based their claims for independence or political rights on nationality and used their history to prove that they had once been independent but had subsequently been subjugated by foreign powers. Hence, what happened? The rebellious nationalities in the Balkan thought of their struggles as attempts to win back their long lost independence. So, for example, we already studied about the Greece War of Independence. What happened? So, because of the nationalist idea, the elite class people, even those who are spread over the entire European countries, so they were supported. And finally, so according to the Treaty of Constantinople, the Treaty of Constantinople, because actually Greece it has its own rich culture and heritage, the past glories. So they were actually tried. So the rebellious nationalities, so in the Balkan, they were thought that, especially their struggles as attempts to win back their long lost independence. Then even the Greece, they were finally they were succeeded. So according to the Treaty of Constantinople, so the Greece was declared as the independence before it, even the Greece during the time it was under the control of the Ottoman Empire. So, as the different Slavic nationalities struggled to define their identity and independence, the Balkan area became an area of intense conflict. So, the total Balkan area, even when the Ottoman Empire tried to bring so many reforms and the modernization and all, even though the Balkan area became an area of intense conflict. The Balkan states were fiercely jealous of each other and each hoped to gain more territory at the expenses of the others. ಒಬ್ಬರು ಕಂಡ್ರೆ ಇನ್ನೊಬ್ರಿಗಾಗಲ್ಲ ಇನ್ನೊಬ್ರು ಕಂಡ್ರೆ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ. So they were completely jealousy. The Balkan states were fiercely jealous of each and other. Each one of other. And hope to gain more territory. ಅವ್ರನ್ನ ಇವ್ರು ಹೆಂಗ ಅಕ್ವೈರ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು, ಅವ್ರನ್ನ ಹೆಂಗೆ ಅಟ್ಯಾಕ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೋಬೇಕು, ಯಾವ ರೀತಿ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಟೆಂಡ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಬೇಕು ಅನ್ನೋದ್ರಲ್ಲೇ ಮುಳುಗಿರ್ತಾರೆ. See, matters were further complicated because the Balkans also became the scene of big power rivalry. It was seen as the big power of rivalry. See, during this period, there was intense rivalry among the European powers also. So each power, especially Russia, Germany and England, Austro-Hungary. Russia, Germany, Austro-Hungary, see, Russia, Germany, okay, Austro-Hungary and England. So these states were emerged as the big powers of European continents. Are you getting this, students? So during this time, especially the powerful states, especially so these Russia, Germany, England, Austro-Hungary. So these European powers over trade and colonies as well as naval and military might. You are very powerful. So even the over trade and colonies and as well as naval and military might also. See, these each power, Russia, Germany, England and Austro-Hungary, was keen on countering the hold of the other powers over the Balkans. ಸೊ ಬಾಲ್ಕನ್ ಏರಿಯಾಗಳ ಮೇಲೆ ತಮ್ಮ ಹತೋಟಿಯನ್ನ ಸಾಧಿಸಲಿಕ್ಕೋಸ್ಕರ ಒಂದ್ರ ಮೇಲೆ ಒಂದು ಮುಗಿ ಬೀಳ್ತಾ ಇರ್ತವೆ. ಸೊ these countries, they were very keen on countering the hold of other powers over the Balkan areas and even so extending its own control over the area. So this led to a series of wars in the region and finally the result was the First World War. Finally the result was the First World War. See, nationalism aligned with imperialism. What happened? So the concept of nationalism, the idea of the nationalism aligned with imperialism led Europe to disaster in 1940. Finally, what happened? When the nationalism aligned with the imperialism, so that led to disaster in 1940. But meanwhile, many countries in the world which had been colonized by the European powers in the 19th century began to oppose imperial domination. They were all, many of the states in European countries. So, they began to oppose imperial domination. So, what happened? The anti-imperial movements that developed everywhere were nationalist. So, in the sense that they all struggled to form independent nation states and were inspired by a sense of collective identity and a sense of collective national unity. Especially, so this a sense of collective national unity forged in confrontation with imperialism. Forged in confrontation with imperialism. European ideas of nationalism were nowhere replicated, for people everywhere developed their own specific variety of nationalism. But the idea of that societies should be organized into nation states came to be accepted as natural and universal. So in this way, dear students, so the result of when the nationalism aligned with the imperialism, what happened, and afterwards what was the result of that, and the condition of the Balkan areas, and why the prominent European powers, each powers, for example Russia, Germany, Austro-Hungary and England, so they were trying to control on these the Balkan areas, and all the result which was actually resulted with the First World War, and all those things we can study. So it is a very sensitive, and so please go through the textbook and then read carefully. So the Balkan area is so sensitive area because always and intense, the Balkan areas of intense conflict. Then each and other, they are always completely fiercely jealous of each and other, and each hoped to gain more territory at the expenses of the others. Even the Ottoman Empire so tried to bring so many reforms and then even modernized also, but even though so it was not worked. So the Ottoman Empire lost So one by one, it's complete because the entire all these the areas. So Romania, Bulgaria, Croatia, Albania, Greece, Macedonia, Bosnia, Herzegovina, Slovenia, Serbia, Montenegro. These were all together used to called as the Balkan areas. And this Balkan area was under the control of Ottoman Empire. And to gain their own independence, all the nationalities in the Balkans thought of their struggles as attempts to win back their long lost independence. So, in this way, dear students, so it was a result with the First World War because all these the big European powers, so they were tried to occupy and they were tried to extend their domination over the Balkan areas. I hope, dear students, you may understood about the Balkan issues. If you have any doubts, please call me and then clear your doubt. Okay, at the next class, I am going to start a new chapter. So this chapter is over. If you have any doubts or if you are not understanding anything from the beginning to up to in this chapter, so please go through the textbook, try to understand, make a keynotes of each topic. Okay, then even though if you are not understanding, if you are confusing, so let me call. Thank you. Have a nice day.